What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, Scottie Pippen has once again said something that has pissed off social media, or at least some people on social media. Scottie Pippen has a history of doing this, saying something to placate today's generation. And then when the heat gets too tough, he then goes and says something that I guess the generation that he played in would take in more kindly. And let me say this, Scottie is entitled to his own opinion, but sometimes he says things that I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. All right, so I'm also going to put a link to this article in the pinned comment in the comment section for you to read, because there's something that was said that I thought was stupid. But anyway, this is the point. Let me get to the point. So Scottie Pippen says that he feels that players today, it's much more difficult to be successful in today's NBA than when he played, all right? And the reason why he feels that it's more difficult to be successful is because you have to be able to shoot the basketball. He said, when asked if this era is more difficult to be successful, he said, quote, "I would say yes. I think that watching these players, the stamina, just the pace of the game, this is a tough game. I mean, to keep up with this pace, and you've got to be able to make shots. If you're not making shots, you'll be sitting over there with the coach. I think this is a tougher era to be successful because you need to be able to shoot the basketball. Bottom line, there's guys that can get up to the hole and create opportunities. They can get to the hole and create opportunities, but the guys that can shoot the basketball for range are much more valuable in today's game." Well, yeah, in today's game, obviously, with all of the zone, with the way they play today, yes, it's much more valuable to be able to shoot the basketball today. That's an indisputable fact. And that was because of a series of rule changes that began 20 years ago, and the game has evolved into what it is today. Okay? That's true. But for him to say to be successful, you have to be able to shoot the basketball, right? The first thing that pops in my mind is, then how in the hell is Draymond Green a so-called Hall of Famer? Because there are times when he can't even hit the side of Jupiter. He can't shoot. And I don't know, since when did LeBron James become this marksman? Because he's an average, matter of fact, he's a below average shooter. He shoots at best 34% from three, when the league average is 36. He doesn't have a mid-range jump shot. So he's not a great shooter by historical standards. Giannis Antetokounmpo is very successful. He's not a great shooter. So does it help to be able to shoot? Absolutely. It helps to be able to have guys who can shoot on your team. But for you to be successful in the NBA, yes, you have to be able to knock down open shots, but everybody doesn't have to be Steph Curry. Now, he talks about the pace of the game. Well, look, Scottie played in the Eastern Conference. Let me make this clear. Scottie played in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference, those of us who grew up watching basketball in the 90s, remember we used to always say, at least I know we used to say this, there's the West Coast offenses and then the East Coast offenses. I know the West Coast offense and all that seems like that originated with football, but whenever we would watch certain Western Conference teams like the Suns or the Warriors or the Nuggets, the pace that they played in was much faster than a lot of Eastern Conference teams like the Knicks and the Heat and, even the Bulls during especially the second three-peat. And we always said, I think Scottie Pippen would thrive playing against those particular teams. And it's interesting because his career high is 47 against the Denver Nuggets, right? In a very high-scoring game. And when you look at it from a historical perspective, the pace that players are playing today is not record. The pace that the players played in during the 1960s and early 1970s was a faster pace, which is why I give those players so much goddamn credit because they were able to play in the fastest pace in the history of the league while also playing defense, while wearing Chuck Taylors. When they were playing, the league average was 118 points a game with no three-point line. So, no, the pace of today is faster than it was, say, 20, 25 years ago, and comparable to the pace of the 80s. But it's not an unprecedented pace. Then you got to look at the fact that a lot of these players are not playing defense. I watch basketball just like anybody else, and while these guys do play at a fast pace, you have to play defense with your feet, things of that nature now. But when I'm watching these guys play on offense, there's a lot of standing around, okay? They don't run plays, most of these teams. Basically, these guys come up the court, and they all get into position or try to get in position as far as camping out from the three-point line. I don't see a lot of cutting. So let's cut the bullshit. Let's stop trying to market this game as if it's some superior shit. It is not. All right? I know Scottie's son just got drafted by the Lakers, so he could give a shout-out to this era or whatever. Get out of here with this bullshit. And let me say this, too. If you look at this article, he says, the guy that wrote this article, and I've seen him write some bad articles before, all right? He said that, in Scottie's era, to be able to score, most players muscled their way to the basket. No, that sounds like a lot of players today, like Giannis Antetokounmpo and LeBron James. You couldn't just consistently muscle your way to the basket when you had a bunch of trees back then. That's the reason why a lot of guys eventually developed mid-range shots. You didn't see, I want somebody to answer this. Who was muscling their way to the basket outside of maybe Shaq? And then even Shaq had to develop moves because that was taking a toll. You got fouled. You got put on your ass. What is he talking about? These players that muscled their way to the basket. Like it was like back then it was just a bunch of ogres, monsters or some shit. The fuck are you talking about? He's talking mostly about power forwards. Yeah, okay. Power forwards, or centers, some centers, use their strength to get in position to score. Okay, some power forwards use their physical attributes and their strength to get into better position to score, things of that nature. Okay, yeah, You're talking about forwards and power forwards and centers. And even most of them, as they aged, they had to, because that shit took a toll on their bodies. They had to develop jump shots. Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, even more so. So what is that's asinine. Whereas LeBron James, at age 37 this year, is still able to bowling ball his way to the basket. And I'll make one other point to show I'm talking about, one other statistic to prove my point. 20 years ago, 2000, centers shot about 47% from the floor. 47% from the floor in league average. 10 years ago, that percentage shot up to 51%. 51%. Now centers shoot 54.4% from the floor. So it's getting easier to score around the basket. They don't have to muscle. You know, it's easier. It's so much easier to score alley-oops, layups, dunks. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Tell me what you guys think.